Hey everybody, it's Spiral. Quick note here, I recorded this at the beginning of July, and life got busy and I didn't really get a chance to get it out until, well, now. So, everything pretty much still holds true except for the stuff before that I said about being before E3, but apart from that, I hope you enjoyed the episode. Thanks. Good morning, evening, night, midnight, wherever you are, wherever you're listening to this. How are you doing today, everyone? My name is Spiral, and this will be episode 2 of my podcast called Spiral Power's Power Hour. As for now, it's just a podcast where I want to sit down and talk about some of my favorite things over the past couple of months or so. In the future, I want to maybe turn this into an interview show where I interview other video essayists, because I think that could be a lot of fun. I'm still working out the details on that, but as for now, I just want this podcast to be something that folks could sit down, put in the background, listen to it while they're working, trying to get some stuff done, and have some good background noise. So, the first thing I want to talk about today is a video game that I didn't expect much out of, but ended up meaning a whole lot to me. That game is Hollow Knight by Team Cherry. Everyone has religiously extolled the virtues of Hollow Knight, and I'm going to add in my 2 cents, because this game is absolutely incredible. You know, Team Cherry is, I think, 2 core guys and maybe a third guy working out of Australia. I would have to fact check that, but I'm pretty sure that's the case. And they ended up making one of my favorite games ever. It was a Kickstarter game, and essentially it's you... Saying that it's bug Dark Souls feels very dismissive, but it's a 2D platformer with fantastic hand-drawn sprite art. The ambiance of the world, because since you're a bug, you're the knight, which is a little tiny bug sort of creature that you're tasked to go through and uncover what happened to the city of Hollow Nest. Well, the region of Hollow Nest, I guess I should say. So the atmosphere is absolutely sublime. There's every distinct area has a distinct feel, a distinct atmosphere all its own, a way that the game wants to make you feel, and hits the nail on the head every single time. It's just a beautiful game. The combat is fun and fluid. It's simple, but as such isn't really burdened down by a lot of excess mechanics. You have essentially 5 attacks in the game, if you will, plus a little extra here and there, but generally you're pressing 1 button to attack, and I know that sounds simplistic, but no, it's 100% a fantastic game. The only complaint I guess I could levy against it is it does get fairly difficult. There's some real tough boss fights, some real tough platforming sections, some near impossible platforming sections. So it may not be for everyone if you're one of the types who just wants to enjoy a game for the story or anything like that. There is a difficulty slider, so it can be a little bit easier, but it's still a pretty tough game. Regardless, it's only $15 at full price. 15 or 20, but I believe 15. It's on essentially every platform: Switch, PS4, Xbox, PC. I played it on the Switch and it ran incredibly. You know, it looks fantastic. I'm sure you could get it on sale for like $10, but even then, like, this is going to sound hyperbolic. I don't know, this is going to sound strange, but buy this game at full price. Team Cherry, like I said, was 2, maybe 3 guys that made a game that just keeps on giving. I put like 60 hours into it my first playthrough, and for $15, you cannot beat that price to dollar to time ratio. It's absolutely ridiculous. Just do yourself a huge favor. If you got nothing to play right now, I know it's a little bit of a dry season, but we're about to get to E3, we're about to get to everything big and popping at this time, although I say that and this will probably release after E3. So I'm sure you have a whole bunch of new games you want to buy, but if it goes on sale, or if you have the extra couple of bucks laying around, spend the $15, get Hollow Knight, do yourself a favor, and enjoy the world of Hollow Nest, because it is one of my favorite worlds I've ever been in. Oh, also, soundtrack, absolute fire. It was just so good. I downloaded it immediately. I listened to it all the time. It's wow, God, that's a good game. Okay, next thing I want to talk about. I want to talk about a couple of TV shows. One is an anime, Kimetsu No Yaiba, Demon Slayer. Demon Slayer is a shonen manga adaptation done by Ufotables, which Ufotables is mostly known for the Fate series of adaptations and whatnot. And I have to say, it is a Ufotables show. If you know how Ufotables makes their shows, you'll like it. If you enjoy that style, I do. I'm not the hottest on the Fate series. I love Fate Zero. I thought Fate Zero was incredible. I've never played any of the visual novels. I don't know any of the extended lore. I've only seen Zero and Fate Stay Night. Well, I thought Fate Stay Night was kind of mediocre, but I'm not allowed to say that. Fate Zero was absolutely incredible. And the strong point of those adaptations, 100% was the animation. Ufotables has a style that they use, which is a 2D drawing within a 3D space, so they get really dynamic camera angles and camera movements within their fight choreography usually. And Kimetsu no Yaiba is no different from that. As far as the story, it's kind of your standard shonen fare thus far. It's still relatively early. It's a young boy with a sick sister. Well, the sister's kind of sick, but she's a demon, I guess. I don't really feel bad spoiling that because it's like the first thing that happens in the show. She's turned into a demon, and he wants to go through the training to become a demon hunter, in which he'll hopefully meet stronger demons to find out how to reverse the demonification of his sister, I suppose. It's a very fun show, very cute. There's a lot of good little comedic bits. His sister is drawn absolutely adorably. She gets these little tiny beady eyes whenever anything weird is going on. It's very cute. The highlight, of course, since it's a Ufotable show, as I mentioned earlier, are the action scenes. They do this really cool effect in which the main character can kind of imbue his sword with the power of water, and it does this like ukiyo-e flowing, waving water effect on the edge of his sword that goes like swirling around. It would have been real easy just to draw, standard water or a 3D water texture sort of thing. It would have been much easier to do that, but no, they go through and they stylize it, and they just make it look absolutely fantastic whenever he utilizes this water skill. But yeah, it's generally kind of standard shonen fare early on. Some cool characters, but yeah, if you're looking for a new new anime rather, this season to kind of watch, it's a quick watch. I think there's 14 or 15 episodes out now, and I think they're going to do 26 total, which is interesting for a shonen show because usually they go on for 8,000 episodes. I'm looking at you, One Piece. And it's kind of nice that they're just going to tell a condensed story. I've started reading the manga a little bit, and it is fantastically adapted from the manga. It's super faithful to the manga. The events are almost exactly the same. But definitely, if you're looking for a new manga... second time I've done that. If you're looking for a new anime this season, go give Kimetsu no Yaiba or Demon Slayer a chance. It's on Crunchyroll. It's on basically everything. I think it's on Funimation as well if you have Funimation now. Yeah, go give it a shot. And the second show is a live action television show, which I'm not the biggest fan of live action generally. I have some of my favorite shows. Atlanta, Twin Peaks, Star Trek The Next Generation are all shows that are some of my favorites. They're instrumental. The show I want to talk about is Catch-22, the Hulu miniseries, directed by George Clooney, which he also acts in it, but he's not a starring role, he's a supporting role. This show could have been, in that top three, or held within the same high regard as Atlanta and Twin Peaks and Star Trek, The Next Generation. But it kind of fumbles a little bit here and there. That being said, it's only 6 episodes, 40 minutes apiece. It is very good. It's very, very good. I read the book. It's based off a Joseph Heller book by the same name, Catch 22. I read it 15 years ago, probably at this point, so honestly, it's been a long while, so I don't remember a whole lot of the book. I do remember the book having a sense of grim comedic cynicism to it, which it's poking fun at how ridiculous war is in itself, and then how ridiculously war is handled within the hierarchy of the military. That tone, those themes are definitely completely present in the show. Hands down, the best part about the show is the writing. It's very clever, very funny at parts, just absolutely cracked me up a couple times, especially episode 2. Episode 2 is one of my favorite episodes of TV I've ever seen. And maybe that's a bit hyperbolic, but regardless, it's written so well. I didn't check to see who the writer was. I know it's directed by George Clooney. He acts in it. It's got a bunch of big names in it. It's got Kyle Chandler in it, who was one of the main characters in Argo and Super 8, I think. If you'll see him, you'll know him if you don't know the name off the top of your head. Clooney and some other young actors that are very, very good in the show. But yeah, the show really drives home that same tone and theme of the books, the grim, almost laughable cynicism at how ridiculous the military is. It's a war miniseries that is anti-war, but not in the general, the horrors of war. You see how this affects the people, which, don't worry, there's plenty of that. It paints war as intrinsically ridiculous, and the people who pride themselves in being part of it, and the people who command in these sorts of things, they are buffoons who don't know what they're doing and only blame everything on the higher command, which is always someone higher, sort of thing. So, I don't necessarily reflect those feelings, but I'd say it's fantastically well done in the show. It's pretty funny. The other thing about Catch 22 is the cinematography. Cinematography is beautiful. It's filmed, or rather, it takes place in Italy. I'm not sure if it was filmed in Italy, but it is definitely a suitable stand-in. They do a lot of interesting camera movements and camera zooms, because in a lot of these TV shows today, they like to do either a standard tripod shot where nothing's moving, or the handheld shot, which is, you get that slight shake to make it look more naturalistic. But Catch 22 does some very Tarantino-esque, like hard zooms, hard cuts, things that make you realize that this is actually filmed, what you're watching. It's not trying to take you, it's not trying to wholly ingrain you in the experience. It's trying to make you realize that you are watching a television show, which I think is used to kind of enhance the themes of understanding the ridiculousness of war and all this. I could be reaching there, but there are a few times where it seems like they're trying to make you realize that you are not, in fact, in the show, if you will. You're not being engrossed. You're being reminded that you are watching a television show. Regardless, go catch Catch 22. Like I said, it's only 6 episodes, 40 minutes a piece. Relatively quick watch if you got the time. An episode a night. There's some blood and violence and gore, some good intense moments if that's what you're looking for. But don't go in expecting a war television show. It's not Band of Brothers. It's not The Pacific. It's not Saving Private Ryan, really. It's more of a comedy set in World War II. But it's not all comedy. Regardless. The next thing I want to talk about is some music that I've really been into lately. Generally, I try to pick just one band or, one producer or one thing like that, but I'm going to throw a whole genre at you. The genre is called future funk, which I only discovered it within the last couple of months, but I've fallen deep down the rabbit hole. It's given me a whole new aesthetic change for clothing and all this stuff. It's absolutely ridiculous. It's really fun, dancey, heavily sampled music. Usually it samples from funk and disco and Japanese funk and disco, city pop, and it creates these fun, dancey, upbeat songs that are just an absolute joy to listen to. I have 3 future funk producers that I want to mention specifically. It's Young Bay, Macross 82 to 99, and Flamingosis. Young Bay and Macross are kind of two sides of the same coin. Young Bay samples heavily from American American funk, and Macross samples heavily from Japanese funk and all that, and jazz and whatnot. Don't get me wrong, they both use, each interchangeably depending on the song, but they're both heavily focused on their own specific genres of funk, American, Japanese. For Young Bay, I recommend Bay 4. His album names are Bay 1, Bay 2, Bay 3, Bay 4, and there's also another one called Skyscrapers Anonymous. Highly recommend Bay 4, I think. That one it's future funk. It's not hard listening, but it's definitely really easy to get into, really enjoyable. I think Bay 4 had the most fun, dancey beats. He's coming out with Bay 5 relatively soon, so it's a perfect time to get into him. For Macross, I highly recommend Idol's Sakura. Idol's, Sakura. That's the name. That one is, I think, his best work. He also did Sham, Cham, and another 2 called Sailor Wave 1 and 2, and I think there's another 1 in there I might be missing. I think Idol's Sakura is just his best work. That's the one that I enjoyed. I can listen to that whole album front to back, and then just start it all over again if I'm in the mood. Flamingosis, on the other hand, he's a bit different. He's still technically considered future funk, but he samples a lot of Latin, a lot of acoustic, a lot of that sort of Latin rhythm that you feel in a lot of Spanish music. That ba ba da ba ba. He does that. It's a lot of the acoustic guitar as well. It kind of gives you that like Grand Theft Auto Vice City, like Miami Nights kind of vibe. And living in Florida, I identify with that down to my soul. I live, not too far from Miami, only an hour and a half or so, and I go down there from time to time, but it's that same sort of wear a Hawaiian shirt and just dance and have fun. Completely recommend future funk as a genre. There's a lot of other fantastic DJs out there. There's Night Tempo and Desired, I think, are the other 2 of the bigger ones, and they'll all have their own thing. Like Night Tempo's a bit more city pop, and I haven't listened to Desired as much. I'll get there soon enough. But yeah, give future funk a shot. It's easy listening. It's fun. It's great for a drive in the car on a hot day. Go give it a listen. Okay, for books, I only have one book that I really want to mention. Last time on the first Spiral Powers Power Hour, I told you that I had finished The Way of Kings by Brandon Sanderson, the first book in the Stormlight Archive series that he's working on currently. Well, I finished the second book, Words of Radiance. Words of Radiance takes everything that was great about Way of Kings and just expands upon it, makes it better. The characters are better than ever. The world is as interesting as ever, if not more interesting. And the big bonus is that it doesn't suffer from the same problems as the Way of Kings did, because Way of Kings just drug on with its world building. I like world building, but the first half of that book was world building. So the pacing really suffered. In Words of Radiance, all the world building is done. You know how the world works, and then all the world building that happens is all new revelations, which is entirely more interesting than essentially reading, kind of a history book of Roshar is the name of the planet. And the other big improvement in Words of Radiance are the characters. It's hard to say big improvement, but the characters are improved. You now understand their motives better. You now understand what they're doing, why they're doing, and pieces are finally starting to kind of fall into place with one another, which makes it all the more enjoyable to see these characters interact and finally move the world forward. I'm reading the third book right now, which is called Oathbringer. I always want to call it Oathkeeper because of the sword from A Song of Ice and Fire, but no, it's Oathbringer, and that one is also still pretty good. I'm relatively early on. Probably by the time I get the next one of these out, I'll have read that one. But if you like big, long fantasy books, epic stories, and I've heard some people say, which I completely agree with, that the fights in Words of Radiance are essentially just anime fights. Yeah, that's about right. If you don't believe me, the first book has a little bit of it, not as much, but the second book, the end of that book is just an anime fight. It's like a Super Saiyan duking it out sort of fight. It's really cool. It's worth the read if you're looking for a big fantasy book to read, big fantasy series. Okay, now for manga and anime. The first one is a manga and anime. It is Jojo Part 5. I read all of Jojo Part 5 before I watched the show because that's the kind of asshole that I am. I've read Jojo's Part 1 through 5 now, but before I'd read Jojo Part 1 through 4, and I'm kind of weirdly hard-pressed to call myself a Jojo fan. I enjoy it. It's a lot of fun. I liked Part 4 a lot. I thought Part 4 was incredible. But Part 1, 2, and 3, and now 5, they're fine, I guess. They're pretty good. They're funny. They're goofy. But, for whatever reason, I don't consider myself a huge fan. That being said, I'm reading Part 6 right now. Regardless, Part 5, Golden Wind, or Vento Oreo, is pretty good. My biggest issue with it is there's a lot of missed opportunities, which I'll talk about in a second. I'll give a spoiler warning beforehand. But it misses a lot of story beats. But regardless, by this time, by Part 5, Araki has really finally settled into his artistic groove. These aren't the big, buff, Fist of the North Star men anymore like they were in Part 1 through 3 and 4. Josuke was pretty big, but, he's wore big, baggy clothes. Part 5 is where they really get their lithe, sexy boys, just going, right? The gang stars themselves are all alright, they're pretty fun, I like Narantia a lot. Mista's alright. Yeah. Abakio was pretty cool. But it has some of my least favorite stands in the whole thing. I can't remember the stand name right now, but the one where he has to rape a woman to get her DNA to implant a baby stand into it, which the lady births the baby stand and then forgets. It's all just super weird and kind of out of touch with modern stuff, which I don't really fall too heavily in with a lot of that, but it's really uncomfortable. The anime, anime is good. It animates everything well. It moves well. There's a lot of fun story parts. They finally did the 11-page Muda Muda Muda, which I think went on for 35 seconds or something in the show, which sounds about right. As the show is reaching its conclusion, I'm a little far behind, but I'll catch up on the rest, I know what happens. Now I'm going to get into some spoiler stuff about it real quick, because I need to. Okay, there was two things that I thought were huge missed opportunities by Part 5. The first thing was, I guess, Giorno's heritage is a good way to put it. It's established really early on that Giorno is the son of Dio, which he's technically still a Joestar because it's Dio's head on Jonathan Joestar's body, which gives him Joestar blood, which means when he had sex or raped a woman in Egypt, they had a baby, which was Giorno, and then Giorno went to Italy, I guess. Or she went back to Italy. Or regardless, I don't remember the exact lore. So when I first read that, I'm like, oh man, that's super interesting. What are they going to do with this? Is it going to, manifest in any way? Which it does slightly. The only two ways it really manifests is one day his hair turned bright blonde like Dio's, and when he does, the JoJo's, signature many punches thing, he goes Muda 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 instead of or anything like that, because Muda is what Dio says. Apart from that, it doesn't really manifest in any way, which was kind of a bummer. I thought, I couldn't think of any good story beats off the top of my head, of course, reading that, because I didn't know where Araki was going with it, but it doesn't really do anything with it. It doesn't affect him in any way, it doesn't change anything, it just seems like a weirdly haphazard plot point. And the other thing is Fugo. Fugo is one of the gang stars for about the first half of the anime and manga, and then due to differences, he just leaves the group on different terms. He's very disappointed that the group is leaving, and he seems like he's going to stand in opposition of them. But for whatever reason, the rumor I've heard is that Araki was in not a very good place mentally at the time, so he decided just when Fugo left to just write him out of the story instead of having him come back and be an antagonist like he was planned to. Like, he couldn't handle that mentally, I guess. That's a story I've heard. I haven't corroborated it in any way. I've just seen that on message boards and stuff like that. Which, for Araki's sake, I get it. You need to take care of your health first and foremost. The audience isn't owed anything, really. But reading now, 10 years on, I think it was, no, earlier than that, 20 years on, it just kind of leaves a bad taste in my mouth. Like, I was reading the whole last act, the whole last quarter of the manga, wholly expecting Fugo to show up at any minute to come be an antagonist, because that's what makes sense. But he doesn't. He just leaves and then never comes back. He was never seen again in the manga. So it was just, honestly, a little bit of a bummer. If you like Jojo, you'll like Part 5. If you don't like Jojo, Part 5 will definitely not convince you. But yeah, that's JoJo's Bizarre Adventure Part 5. And the other is a relatively new shonen manga called Chainsaw Man, which I know that name is absolutely ridiculous. And guess what? The manga is just as ridiculous. It is absolutely ridiculous, schlocky fun. I can't remember the name of the mangaka right now. I'd have to look him up. But he wrote a manga called Fire Punch, which apparently is very good, but also got canceled early. Which I'm worried about Chainsaw Man, because apparently there's been rumors of that. But Chainsaw Man is the story of a young boy who lives in a world where demons are relatively present, but demons are based off of concepts, which it's hard to explain. But so he takes a demon within himself, a little puppy dog demon that has a little tiny chainsaw that he used to fight demons prior to make money. He's dying, and he takes that demon within himself and becomes a chainsaw demon. So whenever anyone thinks of a chainsaw in fear, the concept of a chainsaw and is scared, that would power him up. So he becomes a chainsaw demon, which he can turn off and on, because of course he can, in order to fight other demons. He works for the demon fighting agency, and the show is about how he fights demons, but mainly about how he tries to grow up and become a better man, because he grew up on the lowest rung of society, eating out of dumpsters and being excited to do so because that meant he got to eat tonight. He'd never considered, living in a house or spending the night watching TV or spending any time with girls or anything. He just 100% expected to fight and scrape his way to not die every single day. So he becomes this chainsaw demon, and he suddenly has he gets paid, he gets consistent food, he has women around him, and that's kind of my favorite part about it. He doesn't have the usual shonen goals of, I'm gonna be the strongest ever so I can save my sister, or I can, kill this bad guy or something. Dude just wants to touch some titties. His whole goal is, if he thinks, now that he's got a job, he thinks that women will actually like him, and he'll get to have sex with a woman. It's really goofy. It's, it's not all about that. It's not quite as bad as it seems, but it's the basis for his character arc, which I think is, the strongest part, is the characters are just completely well written. The supporting cast is a lot of fun, too. There's a demon girl named Power, who is essentially just good 02. She's, I think, what everyone assumed 02 would end up being, but instead she turned into a spaceship or whatever. But yeah, the cast of characters is a lot of fun. It's only 26 issues out so far. Hopefully it doesn't get canceled. Go give it a read. Officially, if you can, through the Shonen app or something like that, because that shows interest. That's where I try to read a lot of my shonen stuff that I like, is the Shonen app. It's only $1 a month or something like that, $2. I think it's worth it. It's high quality scans, blah, blah, blah. Regardless, Chainsaw Man. Go give it a read. And the last thing I want to talk about is 2 YouTube videos that I thought were fantastic. The first is a video essay called Spending a Night in the Woods by Satchbags Goods. Satchel Drakes is a guy who's been on YouTube for a good long while. He's partnered with Normal Boots, but he doesn't have nearly the amount of subscribers that he should have. He puts so much care and effort into his videos that it's absolutely unbelievable that he has, as few subscribers as he does, comparatively. He's got way more than me, but he's very obviously a filmmaker and has done it in the past. You can tell by the way he frames his shots when he does live action videos, the way his camera's set up, his other videos, whenever he does live action segments, it's always very visually interesting. Perhaps some of the most well shot live action segments of any YouTuber that I can think of. But his video, Spending a Night in the Woods, is about the game A Night in the Woods and how it reflects on people on a personal level. He's going through and interviewing folks who don't identify with standard gender and sexuality norms and comparing their experiences to the ones that the characters go through in A Night in the Woods. I haven't played A Night in the Woods yet. I'm going to one of these days. It's sitting on my PS4. I'm waiting for that good chilly night in autumn to start it up because that just seems right. But he makes the struggles of the characters just so identifiable that, especially when compared to seeing the people in real life that he interviews that have gone through similar, if not the same things, it really just drives that point home. But seriously, if you take nothing else away from this video, from this whole video podcast thing, whatever it's called, go check out Satchbags Goods on YouTube. Maybe not even just the video I said. He's got a video series called Damn Good Habits, which is all very interestingly shot and well done and full of good advice and tips. He's got older video essays, which sparked my interest in video essays originally. It made me want to start a video essay channel way, way back. I didn't do anything about it then. But I definitely find him as an inspiration now. And I'm trying to step up my productions in video to try and reflect that. But seriously, Satchbags Goods, go check out his stuff. It's fantastic. Give him a sub. And the last video is not really a guy that needs a whole lot of help. He's got like 700,000 subscribers, and not like my, shout out will be anything but a drip in the pond. The video essay called The Greatest Teen Comedy by the Cosmonaut Variety Hour is just so good. Just amazing. The video is about Superbad. One of my favorite movies. It meant a lot to me because I was at the perfect watching age when it came out. It's just an absolutely hilarious movie, and the Cosmonaut Variety Hour, the guy, I don't know if he ever says his name, but he breaks down why it's so funny and what the movie's actually about instead of being just another one of the Judd Apatow-esque sex comedies like Knocked Up, 40-Year-Old Virgin, This Is 40, all that stuff. He talks about why, technically, yeah, Superbad does kind of fit in that mold, but it is completely different on every other level. It's just so well written. The video itself is really well produced, really, really well written. He makes a lot of good points. Seriously, just, again, go watch the Cosmonaut Variety Hour. You probably already are if you're watching video essays. The guy is incredible. But the best teenage comedy, it's just such a good video. And I think this is where I'm going to wrap this up. It's been a lot of fun. I'm just trying to get back into the podcasting thing. I got a little ahead of my work on videos and whatnot, so I'm just going to try and be more consistent, try at least have a video out a month. But regardless, I hope you enjoyed, hope you got some good work done. If you are a video essayist, a smaller time video essayist, and you want a chance to come talk to me, we'll do an interview, talk about why you got into video essays, what you enjoy about it, who you look up to, that sort of thing. You want to get your name out there. At the same time, we can provide some good content. Please hit me up either here in the comments or on Twitter. I'll put my Twitter in the link below. Please don't be afraid to reach out. I would enjoy talking to some other video essayists to see, what it's like out there for everybody else. Just struggling down here in the basement of YouTube like we all are. But anyway, thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed. I look forward to talking to you all next time where I come back at you with some new interesting stuff, I hope. And as always, have yourself a good day, and I think that'll be it. Sincerely, your friend Spiral.